Hey guys, welcome to our podcast, and we're talking again of the 10 things as buyers and sellers that is important in this real estate market. And we're up to number 3. And number 3 is, what do you do as a buyer or seller, and what advice you give to somebody when they have an aged listing? I'm talking about 60 days or more sitting on the market with no offers.
Yeah, so one of the things that we'll go back and we'll assess the market, see if the property it needs some work inside. Because one of the things that I've noticed from a buyer's perspective is they want like a move-in ready house. Right. So if you're a seller, one of the things that we advise sellers is get it ready, make it look good, make necessary minor repairs to maximize the curb appeal, declutter it. And if that still doesn't work, then either go back and maybe the house is listed too high. Yeah. And then what you do is you reduce the price, and it's just case by case. But that's one of the things that I coach my sellers on.
And do you give them enough time to have the house sit before you give them advice, or do you do that initially when you do your listing presentation?
So one of the things that I do that's worked for me, right? If the house is like ready to go and it looks beautiful and they've made it look really nice, like maximize the curb appeal, we're like, okay, ready. This is gonna fly off the shelf over the weekend, because we still see that, right? Then at that point, what I'll do is I'll price it underneath the market value, because what that's going to do is that's going to draw more attention. Multiple offers. Yeah, exactly. Because I've seen that when I represent a buyer. So, and on the selling side too, where if we do all that and we know that it's going to go for more, then we will list it X amount of dollars under what we know it's going to go for. Right. And that helps.
And so most of the time it's condition that doesn't necessarily sell the home and being overpriced. So it looks like two things that are probably the mortal enemy of any realtor that's taking the listing. Yeah. If the house is beat up, you don't want to offend anybody, but you also want to make sure that you coach them and you inform them.
Yes.
Educate, right?
Oh, of course, man. Yeah. You just say it, in a professional manner. Right. And you tell them like, hey, you know what? My job is to get you top dollar. But at the same time, this is what the market's doing. This is what buyers are looking for. Right now, inflation, everything's expensive. Rates are a little bit high still. So, buyers are looking for something that's move-in ready. And then you tell the seller that, put yourself in a buyer's perspective. Interest rates are high. They're paying top dollar for a property. Then, let's make it look a little bit more appealing.
I get you. So then now as a buyer, me coming as a buyer to you, at that same property that we're saying has been sitting, what advice do you give a buyer like myself submitting an offer there? Now you're not representing the seller, now you're representing the buyer.
So one of the things that I do when I represent the buyer, I'll reach out to the listing agent and I'll ask him, he or she a couple questions, like, hey, like what's going on? And, a lot of the times, a lot of the times they'll tell you like, hey, you know what, we had it in escrow, but the buyer didn't qualify. Or let's just use this scenario where the house is really nice, but it's too small or something like that, right? Then at that point, the agent will communicate something with you, and then you can kind of take that with you, and then you can kind of run and come up with an offer where it's going to be under what they're asking for. Right. And then if it's sitting for a really long time and chances are they're motivated to sell, they're going to be more flexible on, helping the buyer with concessions, reducing the price or repairs,
And like as a buyer, I cannot assume that that's what's going to happen. No. But obviously that's why you always talk to the listing agent and see if they're open to it.
Exactly.
Because one of the things that I've noticed is we assume that just because it's sitting in a market that the seller's going to take a lower offer, but there's certain situations where they can't because they don't have any monies or equities. Right. Like you mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a listing right now in California City where doesn't have a lot of, he only occupied the property for less than 2 years. He got relocated for his job with Northrop to another state, and we put it on the market, and it didn't appreciate as much within less than 2 years. Right. So we're having that difficulty trying to get it sold because there's no equity there. Yeah. And his goal is to break even. So I told him, like, I tell the buyers the buyer's agents that submit offers, like, hey, we'll give you a credit for X amount, you can use it for the flooring because it needs a little bit of work. The floor needs to be redone and the carpet needs to go. And we just tell agents like, hey, you know what, we'll give you a credit, just to try to make it work. But in order for it to work, you have to sell it for a certain amount.
Right.
That way he can at least break even.
Yeah.
So it's case by case.
And to be honest with you guys, like, again, every case is a little different.
Yeah.
I've had buyers say, well, that house has been sitting for 100 days. It should take a lower offer just because I say so. It doesn't work that way. Like, we have to do some research.
Yeah.
We have to get information from both sides. And obviously, everybody has to play ball with each other and make things work. So this is the market we're in, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So aged listings, if you're a seller, just like Chris said, be open to either a reduction and concessions. Be open to do some kind of repairs or updates on your home if you want the top dollar.
Yeah.
Otherwise, be mindful that you're, as a professional, going to tell them, hey, look, this is why it's not selling.
Right.
And we have to make some adjustments.
Exactly. Yeah. And then most of the time they're open to listening and taking your advice. But if with certain situations, maybe they don't have the cash flow or, every case by case, you assess it and then you come up with a plan. And, sometimes it works and sometimes, unfortunately, the house will sit there. And then hopefully, eventually, the goal is to get it sold. But if not, then you go back, and something else that you could do is try to rent it out. Yeah. Or right now, something that, get creative. You could, a lot of investors are trying to assume the loans.
Take over.
So they take over so they could take advantage of that low interest rate, depending on when it was purchased too, right?
So there's options.
Yep.
So make sure you reach out to the pros, guys.
Yes.
And again, just because the house has been sitting doesn't mean one way or the other. But you have to talk to the pros that understand this market.
Yes.
Chris, myself, we're here to help you. See you guys in the
we'll
next
coach
one.
you. Yep.